20 fights in and interim world champion, but I am very much. Justice has more amateur fights than I've even had fights ever in my life. He's been boxing since he was 8 years old. I've been boxing for about 8-9 years. So yeah, look, these are the way I've got to learn, and these fights make me better. Like, we saw how much I took from the first Fraser fight and how I took that into the second one, and that's what I'll do with this one. I haven't got a rematch, Justice, but the lessons learned in this fight, get someone with his skills, some with his attributes, some with his hand speed, stuff I'll take and learn and build on.
Can you describe that feeling when he's over and the referee waves it off? What was the overriding feeling?
Relief. Nah, look, it was elation. I knew I had it in the bag. I knew I always had that there. I was unhappy going through the fight with the way I was performing. Performance-wise, I'm much better than that. I do have a way better boxing skill than I showed on the night tonight. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to win. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to come out punch perfect, or I'm going to nail everything to the T. I am going to have to figure things out on the fly and grit through it. And fortunately, I have got that in me.
Hey, and welcome back. Welcome back to the #1 podcast in the sport where, and this is going to be a short one just because I'm in survival mode. We had the New Age podcast Stag Do this weekend. Obviously, what happened on the Stag stays classified, but mate, massive congratulations to Martin for putting that all together. Massive congrats to Andy for being a good sport. All I can say is Mr. Andy White will have some charges in a few weeks' time. Yeah, he'll have to face court. A number of heinous violations were recorded over the course of the weekend, and we can't allow this to happen. The historic constitutional code of brotherhood demands that Stag Do rules are adhered to at all times, right? And so there'll be a case. There'll be charges faced. We don't know how many charges. We're looking at significant indictment. If he were to leave the country, we would have to have him repatriated, obviously extradited and all that. So yeah, good weekend. It's crazy, isn't it, to think 9 years ago we formed as a three. Well, they're already doing it, but I joined them to form a trio doing a podcast, and here we are now, getting ready to celebrate a wedding. Look, the thing I can always say with that is, if you take a few risks in life, trust a few people, and give your best at all times, man, you can always have situations like this. It's humbling, but it just means I'm feeling a bit delicate. Walking around Leeds on a broken foot in a fucking boot is not the one, by the way. So I'm recovering. It's not even the foot that's the problem now. Now it's every other compensatory muscle group is absolutely killing me right now. My back's spasming. My left knee's killing me. My hips are killing me. Don't know why my elbow won't bend. Who knows? But look, you guys, you came to hear some boxing, so I want to keep it brief and talk the boxing. In the midst of the Stag Do, I was able to watch the Callum Simpson fight because they had Sky, but we weren't able to watch the Fabia Wardley fight, so I had to catch up on that. And let's start there, because I think that's a fair point to start. So we can't get overly excited about the opposition Wardley faced on Saturday night. Not because I don't like Fabia, I quite like him, I think he's a good guy. But when you're wheeling out Justice Hooney on, was it 4 or 5 weeks notice? And this is a guy, bear in mind, whose wins are like Paul Gallen, Andrew Tabiti, who was obviously a little guy moving up, Kevin Lorena, for me, a little guy moving up. You look at that and you go, your best wins are a cruiserweight and a bridgerweight. You know, that tells me that you're still in your building phase. So when they put you in on 5 weeks notice, I know you're doing it for the money. This isn't about you winning. This is just you getting a payday, knowing full well you're going to lose, but there's a chance you might outbox Fabia, right? That's the big picture for me. Fabia was meant to fight Jarrell Miller, who I think would have been a completely different proposition. And maybe it's fortuitous that he got to fight Justice Hooney at his home crowd, because people say Fabio looked he looked off. He looked rusty. I'm like, no, he didn't. What I saw just from the fight, from the fight that I saw, was the difference between someone who's coached to box and someone that can box. You can see it when you know what you're looking for, right? Even if you look at the beginning, if you look at how Fabio boxes, and this isn't a criticism, you have to understand that Fabio came up on the back foot, right? He was always on the back foot. They had to get him up to speed quickly, which meant that he had to cut some corners. So Fabio's a guy that has to get in positions he's familiar with. If you watch him, he always has to reset before he works. He's not a guy that can just punch him anywhere. He always has to reset and work. So he's a coached fighter. He's a well-coached fighter, but he's a coached fighter, which means he has to get himself in position, figure out in that position, what do I do, then do it. And that split second to make those calculations was the difference between him and Justis Huni. Justis Huni's a guy that's come up in the system. And you can tell because he can punch him anywhere. All those positions Fabio has to think about, Huni's doing instinctively. It's just in him. And he couldn't tell you why he does it. He's just been trained for so long, the brain does all the calculations autonomically. Bam, 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 bam. And you saw that because Huni was able to get shots in where Fabio wouldn't be able to get those kinds of shots off. Fabio's shots are all very basic. He's got basic offensive shots, basic counter shots. They work because he's heavy-handed and he's aggressive with it. That's what I really like about Fabio. He commits to what he's doing. So there's no, I'm just going to feel my way in. If he's jabbing, he's really jabbing. If he's throwing a 1-2, he's really throwing a 1-2. And so that keeps people honest on the other side. They go, whew, he's quite heavy-handed. What Huni was able to do once he figured Fabio out was get what I call the half shots in. And for me, the half shots are the ones where your opponent doesn't even realize you got a free hand and you just let it go. And they go, what the hell was that? And those half shots are only done by people who really know how to box. Like punching between the gaps, I call it. And those are the debilitating ones because you don't see them and you don't prepare for them. You're just not in the right position to receive them. And that was the story of the fight. Fabio, on his basic boxing stuff, was doing okay. But Huni was beating him, and it was like a game of milliseconds. Huni was just a few milliseconds ahead of Fabio in everything. He had a better understanding of where the fight was going, and he was just chipping away. You can call it applying scoreboard pressure, as they say in other sports, right? That scoreboard pressure of, I'm taking these rounds. I know I'm taking these rounds. At some point, he's going to have to react to that. And Wardley couldn't react, because Wardley's not a guy that he can't go with someone who knows how to go. Like, he can't. He's hoping the openings come for the shots that he's comfortable throwing. That's how I'd assess it. When I'm seeing those sorts of scenarios, Wardley needs you to make a mistake. He needs you to get tired. He needs you to stay there. And more importantly, he needs you, and we didn't see it in this fight, I don't think. Well, we did, but not as critically as some people are trying to make out. Wardley would love for you to stand and trade, because when you stand and trade, there's no skill required. The beauty of boxing is this: distance, position, and timing. Yeah, that's what separates a pub fighter from a boxer. The power, look, civilians have power, so it's a factor but not a factor. Once you take those things away and you stand and trade, it's just about who's got heavier hands, because everyone's going to land. So that's what Wardley needed. Huni was just like, if I can keep boxing him, touch him up, get him here. And he was doing that. His shots were slashing, they were nasty. Not as heavy as you'd want for a guy his size. And, with the Polynesian heritage, you were expecting that David Tua type power. But it was hard enough for Wardley to be like, oh, this is frustrating. And, you've got the pressure of your hometown and everyone's in the stadium, your friends, people you went to school with, the guy you knew down the pub. Do you know what I mean? Maybe a guy you got a job for. Loads of people are in there, and subconsciously you're running through this going, even the guys that didn't like me at school are probably here hoping I lose. And all this stuff will come in when you're getting punched up. Yeah? All the demons start to creep in when you get punched up, and that's where you got to respect Fabio. He ignores that. And here's why. As someone who was lucky enough to see him on the way up, he's always had to deal with getting punched up. because he wasn't better than anyone. For years, he wasn't better than anyone. So he had to get used to getting beaten up, whacked up, and stay in the moment and let his attacks come off. So him being beat, it doesn't bother him. You can see that mentally it doesn't bother him. He can absorb the negativity, the pressure, you got to do this, your hometown crowd, there's 25,000 people. If this doesn't work, it may never work again. Frank's going to look at you differently, etc., etc. To then control those feelings and go, right, at some point, I'm just going to slip out the way and boom a right hand down the middle and see what happens. And he did. He dropped Justice Hooney, just dropped him. And really simple shot, because in that situation, most guys would have slipped to the right. Wardley's gone to the left and gone, as soon as he throws that jab, I'm just going to the left, booming my right hand, which meant that Hooney's right hand goes over Fabia Wardley. And in that exchange, he loses and loses badly. I think at that point he was done. I thought the referee stopped the fight for the right reasons. Fighter safety is paramount. There's no point in Hooney taking a sustained beating, which he would have done. And even if he had managed to survive that, he would have just been limping on for the rest of the fight. And I think they've saved him to fight another day, and that's sensible. And you're happy for Fabio, right? Because he's deserved that homecoming for a while, and that's exactly how he would have wanted it. A headline type knockout, your hometown. You're going to be in the local papers. Family's going to be there. People are going to show love to his family, all that sort of stuff. So super happy for him. Where he goes next, Jarrell Miller. I think he needs fights at this level. I don't think we should be talking about Fabio versus Daniel Dubois or anything like that, because what we've seen this time is natural boxers will always pose him a problem. Combination punches are going to pose him a problem. Anyone with speed, going to cause Fabio a problem. So he's got to work out how he can up his work rate and impose himself on guys so that he's got them going backwards, so they can't do all this clever stuff on him, which he doesn't want. Because you see, a lot of times with Fabio, like I said, because he's coached, and I don't want to say this pejoratively because it needs must in there, but because he's a corner-to-corner guy, he has to position, attack, calculate, move, position. And he has to do all of that stuff. And until he can figure that bit out, his best bet is to keep pushing people back. If he goes back, he's not equipped to deal with what they can throw at him. So I would have the Miller fight next, and then you're looking at those guys like your Dillian Whites, aren't you? I know Dillian's got a Talma next, but you look at those sorts of guys, your Joe Joyces, etc., for Fabia Wardley. Why not Bacoli? So yeah, I think he's in a good position. World title talk is probably 1 or 2 fights too early, but no, I'm happy for Fabio. That was a good fight. In terms of Justice Hooney, he came and got a payday. I don't think we should downgrade him based on this. He'll be a solid enough heavyweight. Would love to see him against Hrgovic. If he's got anything about him, now's the time you put him in with someone like Hrgovic. Then we go, right, mate, sink or swim. Have a full camp, get yourself ready, and let's see what you've got.
Reactions on that Fabio Wardley.
Can't believe it. I mean, what a fight. Listen, massive credit to Fabio. Jesus, he was absolutely done. Lost maybe gave him 1 round, 2 rounds max. And I just said to Justice, whatever you do, don't trade, because Fabio's so game and he can really whack. And the only chance he had in that fight was a haymaker, blind haymaker. And he landed it. I mean, massive credit to Fabio.
So this is where I disagree. People say Justice schooled him. I'm he didn't. It was a competitive fight. Justice Hooney was quicker. Wardley was slower but heavier handed. When Wardley hit, it had an effect. And you could see the difference between someone that's had a full camp and someone that's had a partial camp, because Wardley was just having a greater effect when he landed. And for Hearn to call that shot a haymaker, no, that's a pretty standard shot that big guys throw, where you just dip off to your left and let the right hand go. That's called physics. Surprising, considering he's 7-0 as an amateur, and he was a big guy as well. So kind of surprised he didn't know that shot himself. But I'm seeing the reaction online to Hooney losing, and it's almost like people are like, "What a surprise!" So well, no, like, how bad did you think Fabio was? Like, you know, everyone's just getting hyper emotional about it.
So, you know, just gutted for him, gutted for his team. He came in late. He's everybody proud. He was winning by at least 5 rounds, I would have thought there. At least. I haven't seen the scorecards, but it looked like 5 rounds to me. And look, you know, you've got to give it to Fabia Wardley. He's, you know, come out with a punch like that. We always knew it was just his Achilles heel, and he came out with it and like devastated all of us. So he was, you know, he was getting whacked about from pillar to post there, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, you know how good Justice Hooney is.
Yeah, I told everybody before.
Did you expect him to be that dominant throughout the fight?
Yeah, we did. We really thought. But we knew that Fabia Wardley had an equaliser.
So hold on a second. Hold on. What kind of back of the stables type horse trading is happening here, right? Because you got Frank Warren, who's got Fabio Wardley. Yeah. And Frank would like to do something with Fabio. Like, Fabio's been on the Saudi cards and made good money. Yeah. And he's delivered entertainment. So why would you bring someone like Justice Hooney in on like a sly thing, like, yo, I think he can beat him on this? If I'm Frank, I'm like, who can I trust right now? Do you know what I mean? Like, are these boxers really pieces of meat where you're like, well, we need Hooney to win so we can do something in Australia? And like, nah. So hopefully people just being loose with their words and there wasn't anything sinister behind this matchmaking. But, you know, Fabio did what he had to do. Like, this idea that it was a punch from the gods. No, it wasn't. It was just a right hand that Hooney stepped forward into. Bam. It happens. That's boxing for you. Probably best to draw a line on another card. Looking at the results. Just signs in that undercard that maybe the stable's not as deep as we thought in terms of guys that can go to world level. There's just a lot of filler. A lot of guys that are winning on points and stuff when you'd expect them to be getting stoppages. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That part of the stable might not be as rosy as people were talking up. But let's just flip over and talk about Sky. They had Callum Simpson on against Ivan Zuko. I don't even know who Ivan Zuko is. You know, one of these guys that fights in Budapest 18 times and tells us he's undefeated. And Callum Simpson struggled. And Callum Simpson shouldn't be struggling against the Zuko. How do you get dropped twice? How do you get dropped twice? Number one. Number two, how are you so much taller than your opposition and then you're the one that wants to box on the inside? Because Ivan Zuko's like, oh, so I don't have to go looking for him. He's just going to rush forward. And Zuko was just putting that left hand in the way as often as he could do it. Now, if Ivan Zuko was used to working hard in a fight, he could have turned that fight in his favor. But the feeling I got watching that fight was this: Zuko had no ambition to win. And Simpson, like, has one way of doing everything. And when that doesn't work, he's stuck. I'd be worried at this point because you got to think in his weight class, there are guys like Chris and Billy, guys like Canelo. Do you know what I mean? Like your Belangas, your Munguias, guys that can dig. And if Zuko's dropping him, they will drop him. And when they drop him, they will jump on him. So when I'm hearing talk about Callum Simpson fighting for world titles next year, I'm like, I don't see it. Like, if the belts scatter, you're going to have to avoid so many people. It's almost impossible not to get pulled into a fight that's going to take years off your career. Because Zuko did that. And Simpson can come out and say, yeah, the fight was easy, I didn't perform to my best, and all this sort of stuff. I'm not trying to hear that. Like, that Zuko should have been a 4-round demolition job. He does, right? If you've got ambitions to be the best in the world, guys like Zuko get demolished. Because what we saw was he's not the most resilient of guys. He got dropped 3 times in a round towards the end. That could have happened earlier. So why didn't it? Because there's only so many times in boxing you can do the whole, let me lean to the right and just start shooting these uppercuts in. Like, That's what you do with a 4-fight novice. Yeah, mate, just go over that side, throw those uppercuts. Go on, mate. Yeah, they'll always land. That's a 4-fight novice type thing. I'm not saying that Callum Smith's a 4-fight novice. I'm just saying he needs more strings to his bow. When you're as tall as he is with the wingspan he has, how you're not keeping someone off with nasty 1-2s is beyond me. Like, huh? Make life easy for yourself. Don't use up your mileage against guys you don't need to, because that's just going to shorten the career. So in terms of Callum Simpson, I don't know what you do with him now. I genuinely don't. There are 2 options with Simpson. You go down the domestic route. If you fight Mark Jeffers, just give him some I call them just development fights, right? If you fight Jeffers, fight Jermaine Brown, guys are going to give you different problems. Just do the domestic circuit for a bit. Or if the budget's there, you go, right, let's go fight Caleb Plant. Pay Caleb Plant whatever you got to pay him, fight Caleb Plant. Because then we'll find out where you are. If you can beat Caleb Plant, then all right, cool. We're talking world titles for Callum Simpson. If you can't, then we're like, yeah, we'll keep you at domestic level. So yeah, I think that's the dilemma that Sky currently have. Actually, on the subject of that card, can we talk about Mark Jeffers losing to Sean Hempill? Maybe Hempill against Callum Simpson, and I'll tell you why. If you saw the Jeffers fight, what was really interesting about Hempill versus Jeffers, like Jeffers, it's a bit like Wardley versus Hooney, right? Jeffers looks like a guy that needs, like, there's only a narrow span of things he can do in a narrow operating area in which he can operate. Hempill was just hitting him. Like, all right, I'm going to touch him here. We go right hook to the body, right uppercut. I'm going to move to this side, left hook to the head, left uppercut, left hook to the body, step back, then keep him away with the jab. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, what are we teaching boxers in the UK? Because that shouldn't be happening. Like, there shouldn't be that gulf in class. We don't know who Hempill is. He's a guy from, like, Louisiana. We don't know who he is. And we watch a lot of boxing. We know who William Skull is. We don't know who Sean Hempill is. Do you know what I mean? We don't know. And he's coming and he's just touching him and bam, 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 having fun with how? And we're talking about Mark Jeffers being at the top table of British boxing. Like, how are we training our guys? That's the question. What are we doing, guys? Because everyone's looking very basic, very one-dimensional. And that's not going to be good for British boxing going forward, because we're running out of stars. And we don't seemingly have enough trainers that can produce stars. And that should be a worry. You know, having just talked about Sky, I think it's also important to look and say, well, if we're looking for stars and we're looking for guys that we want to put on TV, if Joe Gallagher can bring Zalfa Barrett back, then, you know what I mean, there's another name we can put in the mix. Saw some clips of Zalfa in his comeback fight. So he's boxing at lightweight now. And the thing I noticed with it was, because normally when I watch Zalfa Barrett, I'd get pissed off, yeah? Because he didn't work enough. I'm like, this guy could easily deal with people if he just let his hands go. And he never really let his hands go. So that's why I stopped watching him. And I had, like, I'll be honest, I had no interest in watching Zalfa Barrett. Because I'm like, mate, you're just, you know what I mean? You're just giving me what you want to give me, not what's necessary at this point. And then I saw the clip that Joe shared online. Different Zalfa Barrett. I was like, oh. And my first thing was, why wasn't he doing this before? This is the Zalfa Barrett we wanted to see. Maybe this guy can make a difference. So no, I just wanted to add that because, you know, it's not just always about what's televised. You know, you got to touch on the non-televised bit. Got to touch on Josh Kelly as well. Josh got his first round win against, I can't even remember the guy. I was on the stag do, so don't hammer me for that. But he's now calling out Conor Benn, and that's a fair fight, man. I don't want to see the Eubank rematch. I want to see this fight, Conor Benn versus Josh Kelly. I think Conor Benn wins, but I still want to see it. You know, because that's what's supposed to happen. You know, we're supposed to have domestic rivalries. You know, not always these spreadsheet fights, you know, these marketing department fights where it's, just get Ben and Eubank, the names will sell it. Like, no, I want the fights to sell it. Yeah, so get Conor Benn in there with Josh Kelly. Let one of them rise, one of them fall. Useful roundup for someone whose head's still spinning? I think so. All right, look, let's just do a quick deep dive. Well, it can't be a quick deep dive, but let's just do a quick assessment of the rumors that Sky are going to end the exclusive arrangement they've got with Boxer end of this month. So first things first, when do they serve notice? Because you can't just be telling me like 4 weeks before the end of the contract that it's done. That's crazy. That's nasty work, man. That is nasty, nasty work. Let's break it down. So what we're hearing was a 4-year, £36 million agreement. So £36 million over 4 years. I reckon Ben Shalom's done about 45 shows for Sky. We're going to exclude all the Riyadh season stuff, right? But my assumption is on the Riyadh season stuff, Sky would get money back because they say, look, thanks for letting us use the fighters, right? So there's money coming back. So you're spending just under £1 million per show. If we just break it down in really crude terms. Some of those shows weren't £1 million shows. Some of those shows were garbage. And I'm not saying it'd be horrible. Some were good, but some were garbage. I refuse to believe a show at the Victoria Warehouse or a show in Coventry is a £1 million endeavour. It just isn't. So where's the money gone? Real question. Where's the money gone? We know 1.5 million went to Boat. We know 1.5 million went to Okoli. But where's the money gone? That's my first question. And I'm not alleging fraud, by the way. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, if Sky put that much money into boxing, they don't have much to show for it right now. Not one world champion to show for it. Maybe Eubank Jr. is a pay-per-view star, but nothing else. They'd be better off asking Kell Brook to come back. Like, I'm confident that a Kell Brook, Sean Porter fight on Sky Sports would do more numbers than anything else they've got on their roster right now. That's a damning indictment of where boxing is. And I'm going to say this, I don't blame Ben Shalom for 1 second for how this has turned out. What I make him accountable for is maybe not going out and getting himself a strong advisory team. Because if you look at Sky are like, right, we need to secure our side of the line. We're going to get guys like Johnny Wish, Kevin Campion, etc. Cool, okay. Who's mentoring Ben? Because here's the thing I've learned about promoting. This is what I learned from Dennis. And people go, oh, he goes again talking about Dennis Hobson. No, but Dennis had relationships with people. Like, Dennis had relationships with people. You're like, how the fuck do you know that guy? But it comes in handy when you need to make things happen. Those relationships are so important. Those Dennis Hobsons, those Mick Hennessy's, you know, guys that do things in the backwoods, in the backwaters, but they can connect people. Ben doesn't have that. If you've ever seen the people that work for Boxer, I'm not saying whether they're good or not. It just feels like it's a group of mates who have gone, we're just going to do a business studies project and be boxing promoters, right? Because it's like, yeah, you know, my mate Kev's older brother can do it, help us with contracts and stuff like that, which you don't need. What Ben needs is boxing knowledge around him, right? So when someone proposes a card, you go, yeah, I don't think our guys are that good that they need to be fighting these people. And then the next question is, why aren't they that good? Well, they're not being trained well. Then as a promoter, it's your job to go to these guys and go, why aren't you training good fighters? That's really the conversation. And I feel Ben could have been an agent for change in that sense. But he's young. Like, we expected a lot from a young man, like a guy who should be elbow deep into his heavy drinking and cocaine phase. And I hope he is. Yeah, I hope he is. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying I hope he is. Because he should be enjoying life, right? Just like Hearn was. Hearn was definitely enjoying life in that age bracket. But he had to surround himself with wisdom. And I don't think he did that. And that's what he'll pay a heavy price for, is not surrounding himself with wisdom. Because a lot of money could have been saved. Really, a lot of money could have been saved. You know, one of my favorite comedians is a guy called Eddie Griffin, right? And when I was young, I remember he did a show and he had an expression. It went like this: the end is always in the beginning. If you want to understand why something went wrong, just go right back to the beginning. All of the elements were there right in front of your eyes, but you chose to ignore them. And so I'll go back to the roster when Sky were like, right, we're ready to go in the new boxer era. You had Hughie Fury, who, whatever you want to say about Hughie Fury, never excited the public. You had Steve Robinson, and anyone that had known amateur boxing knew Robinson was never going to be good enough to be in that position. So whatever you were paying him was a waste of money. If I could see Ben right now to ask him who persuaded you to sign him, Nick Campbell felt the same way. Ex-rugby player, trying to box, a bit Johnny Fisherish, but better because he put time in the amateurs, so less critical of him. But it's no coincidence that no one else has ever signed Nick Campbell. Richard Riakporhe, forever the enigma of British boxing. Like, what kind of career is that? Do you know what I mean? It makes no sense. Mikel Lawal, just think he was really unlucky. Got in with the wrong people, trusted the wrong people, probably wasn't managed and promoted properly, needed more development time, was thrust into situations before he was ready. And I think all of that kind of forced him to retreat from the sport a little bit. But I'd like to see Mikel Lawal come back. I'm going to message him after this. Scott Forrest, another one. Mad career, like just no development. Do you know what I mean? Like no development, no, just park him. Jermaine Brown, I love Jermaine. Like I'm going to talk about this knowing that I'm going to see Jermaine face to face one day anyway. So I think Jermaine kind of unlucky, but also partly down to his own, like how badly did he want it is how I feel. Lovely guy, but did he really want to take over the world? Did he really want to bite people's faces off? Or did he just want to be a good boxer? And he's still got time to come back, but until he wants to bite people's faces off, boxing's going to be a very hard slog. Chris Eubank Jr., Sky definitely haven't got their money's worth out of him yet. Like, so many fights could have happened. None of them happened, apart from the Conor Benn one, which we didn't even want. No one's even talked about whether they were complicit in the fight carrying on, but that was when he was with like the Sauerland. So this is still quite murky. Like, none of this makes any sense. Brad Rear, well, good luck to him. Joe Pigford, Sean Brightley for a bit, got to a certain level, in over his head. You know, power gets you so far, there comes a point where you got to be able to box. Adam Azim, golden boy. Hassan Azim, silver boy. I don't say that to take the piss. I mean, like, there's a chance that he could become just as good as his brother, but he might be on a slower trajectory. Lewis Ritson, stop that. Mark Dickinson, stop that. This is someone just turn. How did they manage to turn Ben Whittaker's head and go sign loads of people from the Northeast? Like when the Northeast produces like nobody of note. Then you have Savannah Marshall, Clarissa Shields, Georgia O'Connor, God rest her soul, and Caroline Dubois. Of those, Sav's probably topped out in terms of what she can do, and Caroline's probably the one that you can say is the golden girl of the division. That ignores having people like Tasha Jonas, who I think anchored it really well. Kara Sartingstall did really, really well. Obviously, Lauren Price is a phenomenon. So they've got names, right? But there's no one there that you say is outstanding. You got Ben Whittaker, but I think he's signed to Sky. I imagine Lauren Price is signed to Sky. Maybe Karis is as well. And you look at that stable, though, and you're like, who anchors the stable? Matchroom, who anchors Matchroom? Joshua and Conor Benn, easy. We already know that. Queensbury, who anchors Queensbury? Fury Dubois, easy. Right? We know. Sky, boxer, no idea. And I don't know what the future holds, right? But if you've spunked 36 million quid over 4 years, it can't carry on as normal. If I'm Ben Shalom, I'm rebooting my whole operation. I'm rebooting my whole operation and I'm saying, right, I just want boxing people. I want people that have miles in this game around me. I want people who have miles. I want people who watch amateur shows. I want people who are in touch with amateur coaches. I want people who are watching what's on the ground. They're seeing the discipline, the ill discipline. I want those people around me, and every week I'm going to call them and say, what's going on? What do I need to do? Otherwise, you know, boxers are going to have 4 more years of the same nonsense. Like, change has to come, and change has to come quickly. We'll see what they've got lined up. I have no idea what the broadcast deal is. I imagine they'll still do shows on Sky because Sky have fighters signed to them, so they need to get them out. But it would be on a non-exclusive basis, but I don't even know what that means. Does that mean Sky will pay to put on a Goodwin show or Hobson show? Or will they just buy the content? Absolutely no idea. But here's the thing. You could take one of those Boxmania shows Steve Goodwin does, right? Add an extra 100K of production value to it. Maybe increase the purses a little bit as well, and you've got a good card. A good card. You just say to audience, look, this is good small hall boxing. And you could do that on a fraction of what you're paying for shows now. Yeah, simplify it. I think my big concern and the thing that I'd be worried about is Sky don't seem to have an appetite to want to stay in boxing full time. So if you're a boxer, where do you go? Do you do some shows on DAZN, something on TNT, Channel 5 maybe? I think Channel 5 is the most likely option. But then what does that do for your budget? You're definitely not going to get 36 mil on that side. But you're going to get a chance to build stars. The downside of that is when you build them, they'll get plucked away from you by the people paying stupid money. So what do you do? It'd be interesting to see. Like, I wonder if Ben would have an international broadcaster. Would you have someone like, I don't know, a Star Sports or beIN, and they say, look, we'll give you a budget to do boxing. Yeah. We'll pick the countries and you operate from those countries. But then you still got signed fighters. And I don't think Ben Shom's problem is organizing and getting shows done. I think his problem has always been picking talent and then being able to navigate that talent in partnership with all the other stakeholders in boxing. You don't fix that any other way than getting people respected in the sport around you, helping you, supporting you, and advising you. Right, guys, my voice is gone. Can I go now? I'm going to go and get some sleep, okay? Guys, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.